Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible.com. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at www.audibletrial.com/wiseguy. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. That's at www.audibletrial.com, audibletrial.com/wiseguyradio.
Best to say that I welcome this kind of examination because people have got to know.
We can get a party around the world, and I believe that if we can get ambassadors who can speak the language, bring students.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Wise Guy Radio Show, episode numero 21. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am super fired up for my guest we have on today is Steve Sizelove. Steve has been a major influence in my work for the past 15, 16 years, and it has been a lot of fun to see his journey. And also, last few months ago, I took a class from him. That was actually a collaborative class between himself and Coyle, and all I can say is it was the most unique, beneficial class I have ever done. It was amazing. So just a quick little background on Steve Sizelove. Steve was introduced to the Flame in 1995, and through that point in time, he was immediately hooked and fell in love. He was going to some school and taking classes at the Milwaukee Institute of Art and Design, and through the glass blowing, he decided that school necessarily wasn't for him in terms of a regimented college classes, and that really what he wanted to do was by getting a higher education was by going and learning from some of the best in our industry. Artists like Robert Mickelson, Roger Paramore, Millen Townsend, Italian master Lucio Babacco. And Lucio Babacco, I don't know if you guys have seen his work before, but you have got to check him out. I will actually put some links on the show notes for Lucio. He's been featured in many museums and galleries. He's taught workshops and classes. He was featured on HGTV several years ago with his goblets, and a lot of folks out there that saw that and only know Steve's face from that show would not recognize him now. He looks completely different, which I think is pretty awesome. And he's kind of found his own way. And he's a family man, has 3 children, is married, and is living out in Indiana. So that being said, I will now go forward and introduce you guys, without further ado, Steve Sizelove. What's going on, Steve Sizelove? How are you, my brother?
I'm doing well. How are you doing this morning?
Pretty good, man. A little groggy and tired, but other than that, man, loving life. Can't complain.
Nice. So,
just kind of a background of my perspective on your work, man. You've been a major influence in my glass pretty much through my whole career. I started back in '99, and first seeing your work in like Glass Line and on some major publications and the internet, and it's like, who the hell is this guy? And this is even before I knew anything about your functional work and just your your goblet making stuff. And so I was always really inspired by your Venetian-style glass, the colors, the brightness of it, the symmetry, like everything, man. Like, always was very sexy to me. And so that being said, like, what was it that initially introduced you into the glass, to the flame? And then where did that style come from?
Well, first, let me say thanks for your kind words and for having me here and chatting about this glass stuff with you today.
Hell yeah, it's an honor.
So I'm an art school dropout. I moved out to Colorado, and my neighbors were in the beginning stages of learning some flame working, and they needed some help getting oxygen and things like that, and I helped them out. And then when they started getting good enough that they were selling pieces, they were making pipes in a little metal shed next to their trailer at 30th and Valmont in Boulder. It's kind of a crazy little ramshackle little situation with 3 of us sharing a national. Wow. But they started getting good enough to sell some pieces, and as a thank you for helping them out, and also knowing that I was an art school dropout and then maybe I'd be able to have some skill with it, they gave me the chance to learn. And we shared a national for a few months, and then we shared a minor burner for a little while. Altogether, we were about 3 months in this little metal shed next to the trailer. And then we rented a space in the North Boulder warehouses, and we were really reluctant to rent a space. That was back before any functional work was widely available. I mean, you couldn't even find it in shops. It was pretty much just dirty tour kids that were coming through that had pieces. So we were really kind of sketched out about the whole idea of renting a space and being that high profile to be making pieces.
Yeah.
But anyways, we did, and there was no big deal to it. Then we, all three of us together, formed Diablo Glass, and we really kind of pushed that hard in Boulder through the 90s. And then in 99, I decided that doing a lot of production and managing a shop with, at that point, we had like 10 people working for us.
Wow.
And that was really kind of distracting me from making good work and just the whole party culture of Boulder in the 90s. And managing a shop made me realize that if I wanted to get serious about my glass, that I needed to go do something different. So yeah, then that's when I moved back to the Midwest with the expectations of going to the Appalachian Center for Craft and studying offhand glass blowing.
Okay.
But I really didn't have my act together and didn't really plan well. And next thing I knew, I was around the Midwest for a little bit longer than I had expected. And I had a small studio set up in my garage. And then met my wife and had babies. And now I'm still here in Indiana. And in the middle of all of that, from the beginning until where I am now, I took some classes from some folks, from Kevin O'Grady and Roger Paramore and Robert Mickelson and Lucio Babacco and Mylan Townsend, and have had the good fortune to befriend a number of more established glass artists at the time, like the artists from the 90s era. And that really pushed my desire to make good work.
Yeah, man, I can see that. I can see that in your work for sure. Like just the quality and the craftsmanship, especially those names. Taking classes from those kind of guys. You know, it's like that whole circle of five concept that your influences in your life and who you are generally are the people that surround you. You know, and to take classes from those guys, especially at that age, to seek out that knowledge at that young age it's amazing. It's awesome. Well,
we were really lucky. The three of us were lucky that being in Boulder, Glasscraft was nearby.
Okay.
And we befriended the folks at Glasscraft, and they were really one of the only places around at that time having classes even.
Huh.
So I really feel like me and Glass it's been a lot of really good fortune and a lot of good luck in regards to all of that coming into my life,
right?
And making something out of it. I mean, as an art school dropout, I never knew if I was going to do any work again. Never really knew, I don't know, what my creative focus was. And, and Glass became that for me. And having the opportunity to study with those kinds of artists and have them as an inspiration, I feel really fortunate for.
Yeah, it's awesome. I know, like myself too, like in terms of my background education-wise, I never accomplished a degree. Well, I shouldn't say that. I got my EMT certification. I was going to go do the whole firefighter paramedic thing until I was diagnosed with hypertension and blah, blah, blah. My doctor's like, yeah, that'll kill you. So I decided, in your sense too, to seek out art classes at the college level, you know, to just better myself, because I've always wanted to be a professional artist. And like you're saying, you know, I've tinkered with painting and drawing and shit. And for whatever reason, man, the glass is my medium. You know, it's just such a weird, ingrained in my soul almost. Like it was what I was supposed to be doing once I first turned the torch on. It's very weird.
That's awesome.
You know, it's really strange.
That's a good feeling for sure.
Yeah, because like there's a lot of cats out there that I see that can't draw a stick figure to save their life, but then you see them create some stuff out of glass that comes out of their head, and it's like, holy fuck! Like where'd that come from? You know, it's really strange.
What I think one of the things about glass for some people is the technical process of it.
Mm-hmm.
So you can be creative, but you can also follow a technical process or a formula. So people that have kind of different creative skill sets can find find the process as I'm not going to say a crutch, but as a point to begin the creative process, or to begin the work of layering on the creative ideas.
Right. It's almost like engineering, because like I wanted to get into architecture and engineering. I've always been fascinated with just building design and how they came together. So for me, the glass is not only art, but there's science, there's engineering, there's architecture. There's this whole left and right side of the brain kind of merging together for this giant creativity type thing,
Totally.
It's pretty cool. Especially look at like, Buck and Banjo, like those cats, what they're doing. It's like taking small pieces of glass and making this incredible, gigantic feat, whatever. It's just, I can't even talk about it sometimes. It's just mind-blowing,
Flame working is pretty unique to glass, or unique in process, how you can create these very organic shapes and then combine them into much larger elements. I remember the class that I took with Roger Paramore at Glasscraft. This was probably back in '97. He was going on an excited tangent about that whole idea, about the possibility of scale by building many components, and then because flame working in borosilicate especially is so forgiving that you could assemble things to a scale with boron flame work that you couldn't ever dream of in the hot shop.
Yeah, exactly.
Just by the component aspect of it.
Yeah.
Now, what's funny is, as much as I appreciate that, my own personal aesthetic isn't one that likes a lot of busy components all put together. Mm-hmm. I like really clean lines and simple forms, but
yeah, same here.
But it doesn't really keep me from appreciating that other stuff either.
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, that's what's turned me on with your work, is that whole symmetrical, streamline, very sexy. Like the female figure in general is like the greatest thing ever designed, and your work has that same kind of curvy. It kind of emulates the look of, like I said, your glass. To me, your glass is very sexy. Even your functional work you're getting into, I guess kind of to go into that, like at what point did you find, because even though you were doing the functional stuff from the beginning, at what point did you say, or kind of click of taking this style that you learned from these masters with your Venetian style kind of look and then transition that into the functional side?
Oh man. Well, how would I say all that happened? Well, I kind of rambled on in the beginning about my start and this and that, and I guess that's just a function of having a conversation over the phone, knowing that it'll be broadcast to people. So with the most realness in all this, like I started doing pipes, not knowing if I was ever gonna do art or whatever, or not really knowing what good art was, and all of those, or good art in glass. Mm-hmm. And then all of those artists that I took classes from, and those are the things that I saw around me that were held up by these people, by the establishment as the examples of the finest work out there. So I wanted to work in that direction. And going to art school, I kind of came to the glass from, well, glass wasn't my only thing, wasn't my only foray into art. Mm-hmm. So I was drawn to the idea of doing all this other artistic stuff by seeing all this other work. And I put all of my effort into trying to transition from pipes into the art stuff. And, and that's why I left Colorado too. Like, I wanted to go be an artist. I didn't want to just stay at that point like a pipe maker, right. Somebody that was in a shop managing like a bunch of people that were working like strippers. They'd work hard when they needed the money, and like all of that whole lifestyle. I mean, it was fun. I had a hell of a lot of fun, but I felt like I wasn't really focusing on being making good work.
Right.
So I left, and that's when I went to back to the Midwest, and then I'm married and I have a baby, and Operation Pipe Dreams happens. Mm-hmm. And I was still making pipes at that point, really starting to like try to be serious about making art. But then that was like a catalyst for me where I'm the Midwest is kind of conservative, and well, not kind of, it's very conservative. And I was just like, fuck, man, I can't really like live making pipes and living. I don't know. I mean, that's,
not living paranoid.
Well,
Yeah.
how do I explain it? Like I didn't want to live a risky lifestyle in a situation that would endanger my family.
Right. Absolutely.
I mean, that's really what it's all about. And so that was the catalyst for me to really try to put my foot into making art. And I don't know really how the Venetian kind of thing developed, except for my technical appreciation of the glass, like from way back, always led me to be fascinated by things that I couldn't comprehend the complexity of in the process. And so even though it's not my personal aesthetic, like I'm not really drawn to frilly, ornate stuff, I absolutely loved the challenge of making that kind of complex work. But it was the technical that drove me into doing the Venetian stuff. I really had an interest in the way the human form is a really organic but technically driven pursuit could go with really clean lines of vessels and stuff. There was something about the process, but the jumping off points for creative exploration, both of the form and the poses of the figure that drew me in. Mm-hmm. And I had I'd say I had some success with that, or at least like the work was pretty well received as it became more and more refined. Mm-hmm. And so I was stoked on that.
Hell yeah.
It didn't make me a damn bit of money though in the long run. Right. I mean, really, while I was doing all of this, trying to really do what I thought was the right way to go being a glass artist in a way, like I wasn't like down on pipers or anything, but I wasn't embracing the community. I was really trying to like shoot for an audience that was like the high-end galleries and the museums and stuff.
Yeah, yeah. And
at some point, I was really struggling with doing, trying to keep it together to do shows, different gallery shows, and make any money on that, because all of it is consignment-based stuff, and the economy was faltering really badly, and nothing was making any money. And I was in the car on my way over to a glass art group meeting from a local glass art group, and I get there, and this particular collection, and this particular collector lived in what seemed like a gated community within a gated community.
Crazy. And
there were a bunch of other glass blowers there that were all there to like look at the fancy art. And it was basically everybody was like sucking this guy's dick to try to, seem fancy and like their shit was worth anything. Mm-hmm. And I just realized that was just all a bunch of bullshit. And the work that they had there, I mean, it was all fine, but it was the who's who of the 80s. And I just realized that, if I wanted to keep making glass, I needed to make glass that I identified more with. While all of the other stuff, let me go back up to, not only did I need to make glass that I identified with, but I needed glass to serve my purposes. Mm-hmm. And at that point, I had really developed an aesthetic that I enjoyed and I liked and I felt really good about, but I was done with it. And I was done trying to work with galleries and, try to keep a current resume and all that stuff. And the whole time I was doing all that, I was really kind of missing the growing vitality in the pipe world. And some of the people that, I had taught classes too and had definitely considered peers that really held tight to the functional game, they were having a blast. They were making good work. Their work had matured and had an aesthetic that was pleasing and interesting and complex. And they had a vital community that was appreciating their work. And I just realized that I needed to start, not like glumming on to be part of it, but man, that was my peers. Those were the people that I started working with. Those were the people that I still identified with. And so I went back to making pieces. I still did it kind of underground for a couple of years, but then I got a lathe and really kind of went full bore into stuff once I got the lathe.
Hell yeah!
I got a lathe for free from the local college, and it was like a gift that I can't even really describe how much it reinvigorated my love for glass by having the opportunity to learn something new. And then to bring it all full circle, then that's when I kind of realized that my love of form and shape and like just the silhouettes of the glass, all of that idea about the way I visually construct pieces was completely transferable into the lathe. So now, even though some of the stuff I do is kind of scientific looking, I don't really even see it in that way. I see it more as the bottles and the vessels that I was doing back in the mid-2000s just changed up a little bit. It's weird, but I'm really enjoying the work.
Yeah, bro, I agree. That's why, I remember when you first came on Instagram, and I was like, oh shit, Steve Sizelove has an Instagram. And then I was like, oh shit, he's making some amazing pipes. Like, I was completely blown away. Because I honestly, now that I'm getting to know you better through, the classes and what have you, like, you just said Diablo Glass. Like, I remember Diablo Glass. I remember I can see the catalog cover in my head with the big, devil guy on the front, And knowing your background now through that, and then it's for me too, it's kind of weird, but being a fanboy in a sense of your work, it's making a full circle for me now with seeing where you come from and where you are now. Because when I saw your Instagram and I started seeing what you were putting and what you're making on there, it made total sense to me, dude. Like, it was like he is in where he needs to be. And it's also nice, like you're saying too, with social media, the way laws are changing, the way our industry is moving forward, the whole nine yards, there's such a vast appreciation. I mean, fuck, bro, I never even in a million years thought I'd be doing a podcast on glass blowing. I've always been a teacher, but because of the way things are going, I felt drawn, like I had to do this show because people are looking for this type of stuff, and to be able to like yourself expose your work to other people out there that have no idea who you are is such a huge opportunity for myself, but for you and for everybody else out there. So backing up a little bit to social media, when you first came out, I was like, this is fucking amazing. And then to see the comments and the likes, and then the more appreciation for people are like, who the hell is this guy? And then they start going back and looking at your old work, which is kind of fun too. So for instance, when we were taking that class, they were bringing up the whole HDTV That's Clever show you did. And, it's hilarious, bro. But it was like, you gave the country an introduction into what stick stacks and shit that was. I remember doing that stuff, getting so frustrated because my rubber bands or something was popping off and my rods would fall everywhere, you know what I mean? Like, but seeing you do this on TV and then seeing, like, I just watched this before we got on the phone, and, I hadn't seen it before, but the piece broke on you, which is awesome. I even told you in the class we took, you're making that female figure, that bubble trap female figure, and it cracked. And I thanked you. I mean, it was kind of a shitty thing to say, but I was glad that happened because it gave myself a perspective that I've been doing this for 16 years. My shit breaks all the time, and so does yours. So it's just part of the game. It's just, it's the way this shit is. The people out there don't see what goes on behind the scenes, that this may have had a crack in it and we fixed it. You have no idea. But the fact, coming from an artist who I fine-tune my craft and I love what I do, to see you, who's been an influence and an inspiration of my work, going through the same struggles, it's pretty badass, So kind of to transition forward a little bit, now that you've gotten your style and your look, what was it that started the whole bubble trap concept and that whole technique?
Okay, well, I was teaching a class at Halo Glass in Fort Collins, Colorado. It was probably 2007, maybe 2008. I'd have to go back and look. But anyway, Brad Wilson that has that shop that had me out there, he does a lot of galaxy pattern stuff. But he also, I don't know where he got the screen, and I don't know who gave him the heads up on the whole process, but he did some bubble trap stuff and showed it to me, and he mixed it with the galaxy pattern, and I didn't, it was cool, but it wasn't, it didn't look like it was refined all the way, but it had a lot of potential, and he gave me a piece of the stainless steel screen that I use as my mold for the core of my bubble trap.
Mm-hmm.
And I took it home and started playing with it and kind of developed that pattern. I mean, it took me a while to get it down. Like, the first preps were pretty small, and, yeah, there was a lot of trial and error. But I was really looking for a pattern that was unique and didn't look like everything else out there. That's part of what drove me away from pipes for a while, was that all the colors were the same, all the patterns were wigwags, everything was like a Sherlock kettle bub. I mean, everything had a horn on it. I mean, everything looked the same for a while. I mean, and that's not entirely true.
But I know what you're saying, though. I agree.
And so I felt like with the amount of work, and this was in the mid-2000s and earlier, the amount of work that people were putting into their glass, and for the amount of, I mean, it's not about the money, but for the amount of pay that people were getting for the amount of work that they put into stuff, I mean, you could work for a whole week on a piece and have pounds of color in it and maybe sell it for $1,000. Mm-hmm. Now, my point with that is, if you do all the math, you're basically, with overhead and all that, you're working like minimum wage.
Yeah.
So the part of the drive for me was to find a pattern that was unique and fresh, and that I could do in a way that that was sustainable. I mean, so I was kind of not driven, but I mean, I was kind of uninterested in the pipe thing for a while, so that's part of why I did the art stuff. But then when I came back to doing pipes, I didn't want to be in a situation of spending so much time doing work that looked like all the shit everybody else did.
Yeah.
So when I found the bubble trap, or when I was introduced to it, like I said, it was a bit of an evolution, probably about a 6 month of evolution of messing around with it, but I saw the promise in it and what it gave me, and I kind of ran with it, did my best to develop it. And I'm still working on it too, because fuming is one of those things that, and you can always learn more about fuming.
Mm-hmm.
And then the combinations of, well, there's just so much to do with it. And the cool thing about the bubble trap for me is that the fuming gives such a range of color that it works so well with accent colors. And it's with almost all accent colors.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, so yeah, I don't know. That's my bubble trap theme.
Hell yeah, bro. Yeah, man. When I took that class with you and Coyle, and you guys asked, what do you guys want to learn, and we all said bubble trap. And that was the first thing that you showed us, dude. And I mean, I literally threw my hands up in the air, and I was like, that right there just paid for my entire class. That one, just you showing us how you did that, bro. I was like, holy shit, that is fucking amazing. It's so simple, but dude, I have done it several times, and it is not easy. Like you're saying, like even you're still fine tuning it. I like the idea of taking techniques that I learned from other artists and then making my own perspective on it. I'm not going to do, like, I will not make a Steve Sizelove bubble trap looking piece ever. But I take the technique and I do other things with it and try to experiment. Even like I've gotten some different types of screens I've been trying to use to play with the different traps and, different fuming. And, it's such a neat concept. But for me also, it's very traditional in the old Venetian style looks of like the old, Raticellos and stuff with doing the bubble traps and that. So for me, it goes back to 300-year-old techniques that we're all being influenced on a daily basis. It's like seeing Jason Lee now, getting into the Millies and stuff and his work. You know, it's neat to see the guys that have transitioned through the past 15, 20 years of our industry that are now really focusing on the tradition of what we do, that being a glass artist, not just a pipe maker, not just a goblet maker, but an overall aesthetic line of work as a glass artist. And part of my show is to influence our new guys out there and gals that are making pipes, because for me, and I'm sure yourself too, you learned a lot of your glass by making pipes. It really taught you the medium. But not get stuck in the niche of just being a pipe maker. It's good money, it can be great money, but you need to learn the medium. So that way, you know, Joe Blow McGillicuddy can make whatever the hell they want to make, technically, in a sense, you know?
Oh, totally. Well, and that's to like understand where I am with things. That's part of why I felt so estranged from the pipe world for a long time. I mean, and I'm so glad it's different now. It's so like I feel like I've come back to the pipe world into a refreshed place of being, but into a refreshed pipe world, into a refreshed me. But for so long, pipers were only interested in pipe stuff.
Yep.
And in the old days, when we didn't have the internet, we had to look to the other shit that was out there. And that's when we saw all this other stuff, and there wasn't very much out there, or nothing out there that really held up flame working.
Yep.
And so when the internet grew and flame workers were able to kind of feed off of each other, it kind of became an insular community for a little while, which did a lot to really further that community feeling and that idea of movement. But for a while, that community wasn't really engaging with the history of flame working and with glass or art in general. But I'd say within the last 5, 6, 7 years, the level of maturity in the work, like a broad-based maturity in work has increased, both visually and the way that I think people are approaching things and the things that inform their work. Like you said, Jason Lee doing all the Murini and like doing it fucking exceptionally well. And you can't do that shit without really going in and understanding, geeking out on the history of it. I mean, that's not just like a cursory level, like I'm going to just fiddle around with this. That's like full-on geek kind of shit.
Yeah.
In a good way.
Oh, yeah. That's I think, the whole glass geek concept is what's fun with our industry. Not only the artists are like geeking out on this stuff, not everybody, but the majority of us that are passionate about this, but so are the clientele out there, the people that buy our stuff. You know, it's so much fun to see. I mean, it's silly at times, but it's fun to look through social media and see people just having a fucking blast with their glass. Like, you know, they got rooms that are dedicated to their art that they've been collecting. And you see kids out there that have hundreds of thousands of dollars of collections. I mean, it's fucking mind-blowing sometimes. But it's so awesome.
And it's funny to think that some of them probably started, too. Now even all the collectors are really knowledgeable about the material. They probably started off with going to a shop and getting sold a triple blown piece at some point.
Exactly. Yeah, dude, I want to eradicate that term. That's my very first episode. I said we have got to stop the double blown, triple blown bullshit. We got to get rid of it somehow.
Oh, it's funny. I mean, who knows where that came from? I mean, in what kind of dumb shit sticks, too. I mean, we still have a little bit of that. Yeah. I mean, you know, fads are fads, and terminology is determined by, I don't know, by the fads and all that. So, I mean, I don't know. But it's such a neat time to be making glass. I mean, there's market vitality in it, and I won't lie, that vitality creates a level of energy that in so many ways is positive, because people are able to live good lives, and in doing that, they're able to really focus their excitement and energy into the material. When artists are, and you know, I guess I heard the term thriving artist instead of striving art, or thriving artist instead of starving artist recently, and I thought that was great, because starving artists, I mean, you know, that's that kind of stereotype of the struggle, like that creates real shit, that struggle. But sometimes the struggle drives people down.
Yeah.
And really can break people's soul. But when there is a thriving market with what we do, then people are able to take their energy and their excitement and focus it back into the work instead of like desperate needs to pay their rent. I mean, so instead of people knocking out $105 spoons, they can take the time to really work on the work.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's nothing worse than sitting behind your torch, sweating and stressing about whether or not you can pay your rent. It's not fun.
And
or
then
feed
it's
your
not
kids.
good work that's getting made.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Yeah, because I really feel like our energy, in a spiritual sense, if you want to call it that, really goes into our work. There's been times where I've been in a shitty mood and I'm working on some glass and the shit cracks. Because my...
Oh, we had that shit happen just the other day in our shop.
Yeah,
I had a guy that was a collector of my pieces that didn't like the way a piece functioned. And, man, I tried so hard to make it all good with him. Offered to take the piece back, give him his money back, and it just felt like he wanted to yell at me. But, man, everybody needs to get their shit out. Everybody needs to be heard.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I didn't want to be yelled at, but, this guy paid good money for a piece, so I let him yell at me. But the negativity, in turn, broke a bunch of shit in the shop that day. Like, not just me. I was, all stressed out, and then my assistant was all stressed out, and he broke some shit. And,
yeah, you got to bust out the...
That shit's contagious.
Yeah, it totally is, bro. You got to bust out the sage and cleanse the room.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what I need, a smudge stick.
Yeah, totally. I'm actually going to get some
Get
for this.
back to the wook roots.
Yeah, brother, I'm telling you. As high-tech as we all are, we got to go back to them roots. It definitely makes a difference. So to kind of also continue moving forward, I'm very curious with the ferrofluid that when you got into that, was it your children's? Because I remember we kind of talked about it a little bit, but to the audience, what was the inspiration for the ferrofluid in your glass?
The ferrofluid?
Yeah.
That is a collaboration with Jeff Blaze, and I can't really take a lot of credit for that. That's really kind of his thing. It works really well with the bubble trap.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he is shopmates to Purdy, and I was doing a mail collab with Purdy, and Purdy said, "Hey, Blaze would really love to make a ferrofluid piece with some of your prep." And I said, "Well, sweet. I've seen him on his Instagram. They look pretty sweet, and he's busted out a few of them now that were fucking awesome."
Yeah.
From what I know about the ferrofluid is that it was originally developed for the space industry, and it's to draw. Being a magnetic fluid. It is to draw rocket fuel to a pump in zero gravity.
Huh. Fascinating.
Yeah. Huh. So now, at what point did Blaze? At what point was he like, "Hey, I'm gonna put some ferrofluid in glass"? I honestly don't know the whole history behind that. So I'm sorry. I'm going to have to defer that one to Jeff Blaze.
Yeah, man. I will get a hold of his ass and find out because I'm curious. It's like the dichroic glass. That's background of NASA technology and whatever else that they use on the face shields for astronauts. And here we are using it in our glass. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Pretty badass. So a little business talk, if you don't mind. I'm just kind of curious, in terms of when you sell your work. Do you have a distributor you sell to, or do you strictly just, sell your works yourself to shops, to retail, to private owners, and then trade shows? How do you go about distributing your work?
Well, it's constantly changing based on my needs and based on the situation as it presents itself.
Okay.
Back when I decided to say fuck you to working with galleries, I needed steady cash. I really I went into debt to make glass, and it was really kind of a bad thing in some ways for my family. So when it was okay, glass, if I'm going to keep doing this, yeah, obviously it's got to be fulfilling to me, this and that, but it has to be a job.
Yep.
And so to make that happen, I worked with a couple of distributors and sold hand pieces until I really built that up. And then I was able to start working with stores, because I had stores ages ago that I worked with, but doing art stuff, I really didn't keep any of those contacts active. So I had to rebuild a whole customer base.
Right.
So after working with this distributor, I built up stores that I worked with that did not work with the distributor. That was one of the things that was really important to me, not to piss where I was eating.
Mm-hmm.
So after that got built up pretty well, and at the same time, the distributors that I worked with, they were going through transitions. So it became kind of a natural transition. It wasn't any, one day, I'm not ever working with you or any bullshit like that. But just I transitioned out of working with the distributors and started working more with the shop and taking wholesale orders. And then I got the lathe and started. That's when I went back onto Facebook and went onto Instagram and built all of that stuff up just by posting a lot. That let me get more stores, and I took more orders. Then I did Glassroots last year. That was actually the first trade show I ever did with functional work.
Huh.
So I did that, took more orders, and kept taking orders, and took orders through March of this year. And I just got to the point where I was having an absolute hellish time accurately gauging the amount of time that it was going to take to fill orders. And I got myself into situations where I had taken orders and I didn't really want to do the pieces after I'd taken the order. So I was working on some other stuff. Not necessarily the best business practices. So what I'm saying with that is I realized I was busy enough that I was not going to be giving people good customer service if I continued to take orders. So in March, I stopped taking orders, and I am working through the orders that I have had, almost done with those, and then my intentions are to continue to work with wholesale people, but what I'm looking forward to doing is making up small groups and just getting with the stores that I work with, that I've developed a pretty good working relationship with, and saying, hey, this is what I have available. If you want it, sweet. And I also hope to have the time to build up decent bodies of work to take to more shows. Traveling's kind of hard for me and my family. I love to travel, but it's got 3 kids, and my son just started junior high. My wife is now working at home with me at the business, and it's just hard to get away. Like grown-up shit takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
So I don't know how many more shows I'm going to do, but that's where my business is now. I do a little bit of retail through the internet, but I mostly work with wholesalers. I try to very much respect that relationship that I have with the stores. So if I do any retail work off of Instagram, I always make sure to price it at retail prices. Mm-hmm. It doesn't do any good to go and undercut the people that buy my work regularly, the stores.
Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, that's where I am with that now. I have 2 guys that are my assistants. One of them's been with me for 5 years. The other guy's been with me for 4 years. They all did their own work. Well, I trained them from the beginning, but they both did their own pieces up until about the last year. And then we basically realized that we had the opportunity for a better working relationship if they were helping me to do my pieces. So I touch everything that comes out of my shop, mm-hmm. And most everything. Well, yeah, I make everything. I shape everything, but they're they're getting pretty damn good at doing prep work for me.
Yeah,
so
that's
what
important.
that has allowed me to do is really focus on the parts of the glass that are new and exciting to me, different configurations of ways to put things together, different shapes. I'm able to go a lot more, I don't know, I'm able to go more heavy because they're doing the work that would take up a shitload of my time. And in turn, I do my best to pay them pretty well for that because they are helping me to make work that has been the most popular work that I have ever made, like as far as a commercial or market-based kind of thing.
Yeah, that's important. That's where I'm at the same point, because I've done the same thing myself in the past. Like before Operation Pipe Dreams, had a studio, had 8 guys working for us, had online catalogs, like the whole 9 yards, and it was like you're saying, it gets to that burnout point where you're like, I don't want to do this anymore. This is bullshit. But now I got my gig at Disney, and I've been there for 3.5 years, and now that I'm seasonal, I'm able to really refocus on me and my glass, but I brought a new assistant on for exactly that, to help me with the paperwork, the errands. Then we'll eventually transition to him into on the torch, doing prep work and stuff, which is going to save me a shitload of time. Because every point that I pull, or every time I rip a tube in half, I'm like, oh my god, I'm wasting my time. I've done this 100,000 fucking times. I got to get someone to help me do this, and it's. People out there that are new shouldn't just jump into that. They need to go through the process of making 50,000, whatever, and then you get to a point where you bring an assistant on. Like you said, you've had yours now for 4 or 5 years now, so you're at that level where you can bring somebody on, and you need to, and you should at the same time. Yeah, that's important because, like you're saying, you can focus on the art. You're not focusing on prep.
And I think it was a hard thing to get to that point. To a couple things, to get to a couple of people that were competent, that I felt could do the work. And man, I live in a place where there are not a lot of young freewheeling people that have a lot of time on their hands. So both of the guys that are working for me needed real jobs, and they took some big sacrifices in not making shit for money when they first started. Because I couldn't pay them much. Right. So, I mean, there aren't very many people that can take on that kind of risk. They can be like, I'm not making shit for money, but I'll do it. But to get to the point where I felt comfortable enough with their competency to really include it in my work. I mean, like I said, it was really 4 years of the one dude working, making his own pieces and helping me with some prep before I really felt like I could really use it in my own work. And now they both are extensions of my hands because I mean, we're in the shop next to each other 30 hours a week.
Yeah.
And I work out of a 1-car attached garage to my house. I mean, we got 3 of us, 2 lathes, and then a phantom bench station set up in a 200 square foot garage.
Sounds like my space minus the lathe. It's tight.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It works though. But what I was going to say about that, though, is since I got to the point where I felt comfortable about what they were making for me, then I had to go to the point of, like, man, how much of this is really my glass? And you know what? I realized it really is all my glass because, like I said, I am shaping everything. I'm finishing everything off. And then I realized that, I mean, that's kind of the tradition in art in general. Not too long ago, they had a segment on NPR about art forgers, and then there was another thing about, I forget how the two came together. But anyways, they were talking about the history of students in studios, in painting, and the history of how the students and the apprentices in the traditional painting studios would help prep the master's work. They would prep the canvases and mix the paints and all of that. And I kind of realized that without intention, my studio and my business model has begun to emulate traditions of the past.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And that made me feel a little better about what we were doing. Because sometimes I feel like things have got a little too commercial, but at the same time, like I said before, that gives me a level of energy and vitality that I have not had with the work in a long time. I mean, I've gone through those births and deaths with glass probably like 3 different times. I mean, a lot of lifetimes and changes. I enjoy glass more now than I have in a long time because of being willing to take risks and let things change. And when I've learned recently that in addition to just having people help me, by working as a team and meeting the needs of the 2 guys that I have helping me, then all of a sudden there's a synergy in the shop where we're working together for a common goal. Yeah. And that's pretty fucking awesome.
Yeah,
that all of a sudden makes it about something more than just me and my glass. It becomes about, being part of something that's alive.
Yeah, it's true, dude. I agree. And the whole team, but also what's fun too, like on the, I guess I don't want to say financial side. I don't know really how to explain it, but the fact that you're able to help these guys live their lives, you're able to support them, you're able to pay them money, pay whatever, that they can pay their bills, and they're happy. You know, you're because of your work and your struggles and what you've gone through. Now you're at a point where you can help these cats out. That may or may not.
I'm a job creator.
Yeah, exactly. Hell yeah.
I joke about that, but sometimes I'm like, holy shit, that's true, and it's fucking awesome.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely, man. It's amazing. And these guys they may or may not go through the struggles that we've all gone through because they have you and, you know, as their master per se. You know, it's they're very fortunate. I would love to sit in your shop for 5 years and learn from you, bro. That'd be fucking amazing.
Oh, man. You'll hear me bitch and whine about a lot of things, so I don't know.
Hey, dude, I bitch and whine all the time, bro. We'll do it together. It's all good.
Oh, man. Hey, I appreciate the opportunity to share all this with people. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if it helps anybody to talk about what I've done and not done, but, I mean, you know, it's fun to talk about, like, all of the change that I've seen and, I don't know, the inspiration of my glass and all that stuff is, I mean, that's kind of cool and all. I mean,
yeah, but it's the journey.
I don't know. I guess like from my years of taking shit too seriously, I try not to take shit too seriously now. And so if in the beginning of this conversation it seemed like, I don't know, maybe not planned, but, you know, awkward. It's because I've had these conversations about the beginning of my glass with people before and stuff like that. And sometimes you don't really know what to include for people. But, man, my point with rambling on again is that it's just nice to be able to share the love and excitement of glass with you, with the other people that are listening. And I feel fortunate because, like I said, I've had, you know, a good up and down, like probably 3 different times, at least, in my 20 years. I've been doing this shit for 20 years this year.
Wow, that's
and
awesome.
So for me to still be doing it, I'm like, wow, man, I'm so fucking, man, so blessed.
Yeah, it's true, brother. I count my blessings every day. The fact that I can get up and come out of my studio and turn all my kiln on. And, I mean, I literally, bro, I usually work in my underwear. I mean, that's all I usually ever wear. You know?
Well, you live in Florida, dude.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, you're making butt soup all day long.
Yeah, man, if they can make a Kevlar sock of some sort, I'd wear that bitch all day long, you know? Protect my nuts while I'm working, just wear that. Red hot chili pepper style.
Nice.
So kind of just one more real quick question before we go into thanking our sponsors. You mentioned that your wife now has kind of come aboard with the business. So is she the one that helps the money side of things so that you're not worrying about the financial stress and the books?
She is, she's not super stoked about, like, being my secretary, but, and I've told her time and time again, you're not my secretary. You have hugely helped me make more glass by helping stay on top of this stuff. Because what I realized is, like, all that shit, it's about half. I mean, you can split up your time about half office clerical shit, you know, bookkeeping and all that stuff. split your time up half with that and half with glass.
Yeah.
But because she's doing that for me, I'm able to get so much more glass made.
Yeah, it's true.
The reality of having somebody competent and organized that you trust handling your business shit, that is, I mean, without a doubt, that's worth whatever you can pay for it.
Yeah.
And usually you get what you pay for, too. The less you pay somebody, the less you get.
Yeah, exactly. It's also the whole trust thing. I've heard horror stories of businesses, having people laundering, hundreds of thousands of dollars outside the back door that they had no idea was going on because they're not running that side of the business. So it's important. The trust.
God, I don't ever want to be at that point where I am so out of touch with things that would happen to me.
Yeah.
But if I'm making that much money, well, then I mean, maybe it's a different story then, because I'm definitely not making that.
Hell yeah, man. Well, let's take a quick pause real quick to thank our sponsors, and we'll come right back. This episode of the Wise Guy Radio Show is sponsored by Wise Guy Media, a new company dedicated to showcasing the talents and offerings of their customers through podcasting, eye-catching graphics, logo, and customized web design. Established in 2015, Wise Guy Media is continuing to push the elements of web and logo design with outside-of-the-box ideas and up-to-date graphic generating programs. Whether you want to launch your own podcast, need a website, or a new logo for your brand, they have all your needs covered to promote yourself and get your brand recognized in your industry. To see what they've been up to, check out their site, www.sonyermedia.com/wiseguy, for a sample of what they've been doing to help get this podcast off the ground. That's www.sonyermedia, SANYERMEDIA.com/wiseguy. Now it is time for the most exciting part of the show. It is time for the lightning round. And the lightning round consists of a couple of questions, 5 or 6 questions here, and each answer can be anywhere from 30 to 60 seconds long. And if you want to expound upon the answer a little bit longer, that is fine too. But, yeah, man. Here we go. So,
Okay.
First question is, if you could work with any living glass artist that you haven't worked with before, who is it and why?
Skip. I'm going to skip that one.
Okay. Yeah,
I'll come back to it.
Okay. Yeah, that's why I want to ask it, because I'm not looking at like pulling any name out of a hat, but I'm just curious, because there's a lot of amazing artists out there. I could list 50 people right now.
Well, and that's the thing. That's why it's so hard to say who I'd want to work with.
Yeah.
I mean, do you want to work with somebody because you'd go have a lot of fun with them? Or do you want to go work with somebody because you'd make some really badass glass? Mm-hmm. Do you want to go work with them because it's an opportunity to go to a different part of the country that you don't get to go to? Do you want to work with them because you want to maximize the amount of money you can make for the amount of time that you're going to be working? I mean, to answer that question is so hard because there are so many different reasons to go work with people.
Yep. That's why I ask it.
I mean, is that a fair answer?
Dude, that's perfect.
I mean, that's not a lightning round answer, but...
Hey, it's an answer. It's good. So,
okay.
Number 2, if you could describe the sound of glass cracking in one word, what is it and what and why?
It's the sound of non-attachment.
Cool.
Because when I hear glass break, I have practiced many times to not care because I don't want to continually be pained by things that I hold dear breaking.
Mm-hmm. Understood.
It's a practice in Buddhist non-attachment.
Hell yeah. What are your top 5 favorite colors?
Green, and lavender, and purple lollipop.
Nice. Green.
Well, I mean, not really green glass. There aren't really any good transparent greens. I don't really like most of the greens in glass, but I like green a lot in the real world.
Yeah, me too. Hell yeah, especially in glass.
Part of what sucks about living in Indiana, it's so gray and brown during the winter.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, I've only seen snow once in my life, dude, in almost 40 years. So, I'm not really familiar. But I've seen
I mean,
pictures.
snow's okay. It's just, 6 months of shitty weather. That sucks.
Yeah, it does. So, what's the worst injury you've ever had as a glass artist?
Worst injury? I've had a couple pretty bad burns.
Yeah, hand and torch kind of stuff, or just grabbing hot glass?
Both.
Yeah.
Grabbing hot glass, hot tools. I've got a nice scar on my thumb from my little torch. I have a magnet on my little torch, and when I was working one day, I just set it down on the bed of the lathe because I needed to do something. I just went to pick it back up, I hit the hose with my foot, and the little torch just swiveled. I pivoted where it was stuck to the bed with the magnet, and just went right across my thumb. And that was a pretty bad burn.
That sucks. So, if you could give your beginning glass blowing self any advice, what would it be?
Oh man, quit smoking cigarettes.
Beautiful. Are you a TV, a music, or both in the studio?
Music or NPR.
Okay.
Or just silent sometimes too.
Yeah. If you get a chance, two interviews ago was with Kemp Curtis, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with Kemp, but he's been behind the torch for 46 years, and
I'm not. I want to check him out.
yeah, bro, the guy's a wealth of knowledge, but he's only has 10% hearing, so when he goes in the studio, he just pulls his hearing aids out, and it's just him and the flame. It's a pretty interesting concept.
Yeah. I wonder if he's hearing losses due to years of loud torch action.
Nope, he was actually born that way. Him and his sister both were born that way. And he grew up in the theater, so he learned how to hear more or less from reading lips in the theater.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it's an incredible story. And besides the amount of background we talked about in history of glass, and it was pretty cool. So, all right, man.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was episode 17, but all right, man. So the last and final question is a bit of a crazy one, but I've added one more little doozy to this guy to make this a little bit easier to answer. But the question is, if you were stranded on an island that had a glass studio in it and only supplied your torch, gases, and a kiln, what 5 items would you bring?
Oh, let's see. I like my lathe a whole lot. I need a paddle. Probably some tweezers. And if I'm on my lathe, I need a good octagonal reamer. How many things is that?
I think that was 4.
That was 4, so I need one more. Oh, I need my glasses.
Amen. You're the first person to give me that answer, dude. Hell yeah. I was hoping out of anybody you'd give me that answer.
Cool.
Yeah.
I mean, those are they're kind of like, you don't think about them because they're on your face. You don't really see them. So,
yeah.
But yeah, you can't do shit without them.
Yep, exactly. And finally, before we say goodbye, if you could give us how we can get in touch with you through social medias and websites, and also if you can give any parting piece of advice.
Let's see. I am on Instagram at Steve_Sizelove. I'm also on Facebook, but pretty much Instagram is like the best way to go about it. And then kick me at Steve Sizelove, like all one word. I don't generally answer email these days. I mean, not that I'm opposed to it. I just don't really do a very good job at juggling all that shit. And then parting words of advice. Man, do your best. Know what the best is, and do your best. And don't take any of it too seriously. Don't ever think that you know all the answers, and I don't know. Don't take this shit too seriously.
Hell yeah, I agree. Well, hell yeah, man. It has been an honor and a privilege to get on here and talk glass with you, brother. It's been a lot of fun.
It's an honor to me that you would want to listen to me babble on about all this random kind of stuff, but I appreciate the opportunity, and I hope the best for your glass and for everybody that's listening, too.
Hell yeah, man. And I had to get my ass out to Indiana to come play with you for a little bit.
Awesome. Welcome anytime.
Yeah, dude. I appreciate that, brother. And go plug your phone in, and we will talk soon.
Yeah, awesome. Let me know when this is up and listenable so I can make sure to avoid it. Because usually when I hear this kind of shit, I'm like, oh, God. you know how that goes. Well, maybe you don't. Maybe you don't mind listening to yourself. Otherwise, doing the podcast would be kind of rough for you. I don't know.
Yeah, you know what? The very first episode I ever did, I went back and listened to it. And because I had never really listened to myself talk before like this, it was like listening to another podcast. And it was, I liked that was how it was because it made me realize that I was doing an okay job at this because this is all new for me.
Nice. So. Yeah, that if you can have that level of just observation about it, that's great.
Hell yeah, yeah, dude. And yeah.
See, I was just going to say thanks again. I thought, we've had a wonderful conversation, and dude, you're welcome here anytime, man.
Awesome.
Not that Indiana's a good place to visit, but
hey, it's the home of Steve Sizelove, brother. I'll be out there.
Right on.
All right, brother. Well, happy melting, and we will be in touch.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Jason. Take care, man.
Yeah, man. Take it easy. Peace. Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of the Wise Guy Radio Show. If you have any questions, comments, or remarks, please leave them in the show notes page area where it says comments. We'll see you soon. Have a wise night.
You're listening to the Wise Guy Radio Show.